Hi. uh, I made this video before, at least once before, but recently, talking about what relationship is, specifically between men and women, a romantic relationship, a love relationship. Um, and I just, I've been watching a lot of videos lately, for a long time now, for years. But there's so many lately. A lot of channels now about these subjects, just about these MGTOW subjects, which is men going their own way. MGTOW. The manosphere is another word for it. Men's rights people. That's a little bit different. And then feminists, and all these. I don't like to use these words, but people talking about like promiscuity in women, and just the current state of dating. I don't really like to even use that word either, dating. But that's a different subject. So for convenience sake, I'll just use convenient words. I can explain things later. But so videos about these subjects, and there's so many channels now about. Um, I'm sure for the women, I don't tend to watch those videos. Occasionally, maybe a little, mostly clips in the guys' videos. But on these subjects, the friction, the difficulties, the state of affairs in relationships with men and women, with younger people, with typically with unmarried, but it also concerns married people and divorces and all that stuff. So it's all about the nature of female nature and male nature in terms of um, relationships, sex, family, having children, all those things. And so in my mind, I've been thinking of it for quite some time. And I've been passionate about these subjects and many others for many years. I'd say all my life pretty much, and been developing some theories on different things. Not that I came up with all of it myself or anything, but so I just want to say that that's quite a preamble, right? But um, to me, my angle is, what is relationship? And the last video I did, uh, I was not happy with it, so I deleted it and wanted to remake it. So, what is relationship, right? People talk about all these things, all these aspects about it. You know, how to be a pickup artist if you're a guy, or how to have game, and how to get a girl, how to get what you want out of a girl, and stuff like that. And then for the women, it's not entirely different, right? And a lot of these things on both sides, where they're both blaming the other sex, and they're both. It's a bunch of horrible stuff. It's echo chambers on both sides. Both sides are doing a lot of wrong things. But I guess I agree with the guys, uh, and maybe I'm a little guilty. I take some pleasure in seeing, like, but like that the women take. I think that they have the losing battle because of the biological clock, right? And because of the fertility is a much shorter window, and men aging like wine and women aging like milk, and these types of dynamics, which you know I'm sure can be argued to some degree, but they're basically, it's the truth. And everyone loses ultimately in these games, but I think that men have the advantage, and when women lose out more, and all of society loses. Everybody loses with these behaviors. So I don't just agree with everything about you know MGTOWs and whatever these types of men's videos. I watch a lot of them, but I don't just agree with and follow them all, or whatnot. But there's definitely a need for men and young men these days to have male spaces to talk about our problems and our issues and our point of views, and to express frustrations and stuff, in concerns with the state of women and relationships. So, for that part, it's it's okay. Partly, there's better sources, I'm sure, but so what is relationship? You know, people talk about how to date, and they mostly talk about things in modern terminologies. Although it's funny because I'm watching so many of these videos, and um, it's funny, right? Because people are so modern, and everyone, you know, I like to criticize, kind of mock a bit modern people, because I would say, like, they're discussing these subjects like you know, from this kind of seemingly hyper intellectual facade, that they're like, as if they're the first ones to ever discover these subjects, like what is gender and what is this and that. And you know, I'm like, yeah, as if people didn't know about sex and about pleasure and about relationships and all this stuff like thousands of years ago. Yeah, they all knew. Everyone knew, right? And we think we're so much smarter now, but I don't think it's really true. You know, in some ways, yes, but um, ultimately, you know, according to wisdom and the experience and how things play out, are we really better? No, like in many ways, I'd say we're worse. But um, so you know, whenever I try to do something or look at something, I try to look at the root, the essence. You know, really capture something, the real. What's the real source of it? And then you can branch out from there. But typically, like, so what is relationship? You know, how does it really work? How does it function, right? Because there's dating coaches, and there's endless channels these days about the issues involved, but also how to have success in these areas for, you know, for men and women. Um, and but who really defines what they are? There are videos talking about it, but uh, I don't know how good of a job they really do, and I think that's kind of important, right? If people are really going to understand how to find a partner, I'm avoiding, you know, then I think understanding relationship, what loving relationship actually is, what is it? And sometimes I think when you really go to the core and the essence of a subject, sometimes it might seem a little too simplistic or too obvious or fundamental, that people might dismiss it for those reasons and think that it's not deeper, insightful, or true, or important. And they all want to talk about the details, and then they argue the details, right? But the details are mostly going to be wrong if you don't really understand the basis, the fundamentals, the foundation. So, you know, get that clear, and then you can discuss details any other time. The rest will become much clearer. So, relationship to me, the video is already getting long, but this is just the way I am. Uh, I believe personally, in my experience, that and my thoughts, that relationship between men and women is this order: that love comes from God, and you know, your depiction of God can be whatever you want it, uh, but it goes from God to man to women and children. You know, men to women and to children. Right? It's a bit of a little tree branching out there, but that's like the order and the hierarchy. Okay, both spiritually and physically, and um, and so that's how things ought to be understood and function. And so, you know, to me, it's well known, and like I said, people like to argue these things as if, you know, they're challenging the old stereotypes or patriarchy or whatever, and they think they're really clever in doing so, but mostly they're just upsetting what things people already knew and causing a whole bunch of woe and grief for themselves and myself. You know, I'm guilty in getting caught up in a lot of this stuff as well, and you know, we're all influenced in this modern day, and it's a struggle for everybody. But um, basically, a man, you know, love from God to the man to the woman and children. Um, and so we know that men are the ones who have to choose a woman, right? Ultimately, women can signal to men and get their attention, and you know, kind of spur on um, a relationship by having him notice her or let him know that she's available or interested or whatever. But ultimately, he has to choose her. He has to want her and pursue her, right? The desire, the drive comes from the man, and his love and choice of the woman is what begins it and what drives it and maintains it. It's a wonderful thing, and it's a beautiful thing. In the Bible, he says, was it Solomon, who was the wisest man who ever lived, and he said that it was like four things, I think, are too wonderful for him to comprehend. He was so wise, but some of these things were just too wonderful. He couldn't even quite understand it. And one of them was the way of a man and his maid, right? The love from a man to a woman. And to me, I really love that, because it really, well, it can make you think. You can just go on and on about it, but it is such a beautiful thing. Okay. And it's become so dirty and awful these days, and most people are very jaded and brokenhearted, and bitter and resentful and hurt and all these things, men and women, but especially the women, I think, on that side, because of the state of things. And it's not just the fault of us as individuals. There are powers at play here that affect us all, that are bigger and greater than us and our parents and our upbringing and all that. So everything comes into play. And yes, we have to take responsibility for our actions and do better, and we reap what we sow. But so it's not just about blaming individuals. It's about understanding the whole thing, and we have to change that. So love from the man to the woman and the children, and that's the order. That's the function. So if you can, understand that that's the way it works. Now, one of the things is that men are the builders. We're the conquerors and the builders and creators of society, because, well, that's what we are, right? We have the capacity to do that. Women don't have the capacity to do that. They simply do not. There are exceptions in a way, but not really. Like they don't. And because of that capacity, which is partly our physical capacity, but it's also our mental capacity, we're created in a way that suits us having the leadership. So not only are we the ones who love and choose and pursue women, but we're also just made, physically, emotionally, mentally, superior in most aspects, in terms of business and defense and strategy and many of these subjects out there in the physical world, to deal with survival and foraging and defending and protecting and building and all these things. Okay. And many long-term things for relationships and families, to keep those bonds strong, and to raise men and women which are both strong, and to raise adults, and women have, obviously, of course, a critical role to play in that, being the mothers and child bearers, but also as nurturers and confidants and emotional supports and guidance and many things like that, throughout all of our lives and our society. And that's critical, right? Without it, obviously, there'd be no procreation, but there would also just be no flourishing, no true happiness or fulfillment for anybody. We so yeah, like the manosphere people will say, like, yes, men don't rely on women for survival, because that's right, we can survive without them in terms of hunting and killing and fighting and building. Yes, and women need men for that. But men do need women for emotional needs. We do have emotional needs, men. To say that we don't is wrong. Can a man be stoic, like really insanely, and sometimes he needs to be, and all that? Yes. But we do need it. To me, I mean, that's why, you'll just have to roll with it. I'm not preaching to you, but you can take whatever example you want. I'm sure there are many, but in the Bible there, Adam was lonely or depressed or whatever you want to describe it, and he asked God. Well, he saw that the animals had partners, and God made him the partner. So it just shows you right there. And we could look at all examples of our life and see that, yes, like men do need women. We need that fulfillment. It's fulfillment. Um, it's an object of affection. And but what it is a woman fulfills a man, because I was always taught, okay, I'll keep it not too religious for you, but um, so basically, man, you can't keep yourself short-winded, can you? Sorry for shaky video, but whatever, what's the big deal? So, men love women, and this is how I just want to say it is, I believe that this is how what relationship is and how it functions in the most basic essence, is that men love women, and women must submit to man's love and accept, it's another word, accept a man's love, right? You shouldn't have a problem with that. If you submit to a man's love, you accept a man's love. It's the same thing, right? That's what submission is. It's acceptance. And so, men want to please women. That's what we want. That's what I would say every man wants. Um, if he's not too corrupted or whatever, people can get into some crazy situations. But so any decent, loving man, loves women and wants to please women. That makes us so happy, and why? Because it's fulfilling. Now, these are the reasons. Because man is made in God's image. Now, basically, a man wants to feel like a conqueror, like a king, like a hero. He wants to be a provider and a protector and a lover and all these things, and a friend and a playmate, and just be appreciated and be looked up to, respected, admired. Those things are very important, and I think that those are at the very core and center of heart's desire for every boy and man. And how can we find that? You know, to some degrees, we find some of those things in various ways amongst our peers, amongst other men, in business relationships and friendships. Your father, whatnot. Yes, but they can't provide all of it because they're men, right? We're men, they're men. Women are vulnerable and soft and more needy and all these things, and they provide the opportunity for men to be fulfilled in loving and providing for vulnerable, soft women who need our protection, our provision, and our love. And that fulfills us, because that's a desire that's in our heart. It's within us, okay? And that makes us to be a better man and a more full person, because you can't express something that isn't in you, right? And I believe that it's in man from God. You know, God created people, mankind, to express his characteristics in us, and man wants to express his characteristics in turn, made in the image. So he wants to love women, and that fulfills him, his characteristics and his attributes which are within him, and he cannot fulfill them of himself only, um, not in the same way, or with others, right? So that's how that works. And so a man wants to do things for a woman. He wants to love her. He wants to build things for her. He basically wants to do anything she wants, uh, or asks for or needs. Men want to do everything that the woman wants, but there are obvious caveats, um, known as like simping. Don't You can't simp, or these things. Basically, it means that you can't allow yourself to be disrespected, to be used, abused, anything like that, right? So the man has to have self-respect and honor and nobility, and he cannot allow himself to be disrespected by the woman. Um, I'm sure there's some other good adjectives and words to use there, but I'll just stick with that one for now. So those are the things that the man has boundaries and laws and rules that he should not break. He really cannot break without there being consequences, to everybody. Um, and it's not going to work, and it won't be fulfilling for anybody. But when he upholds his boundaries and his respect and dignity, nobility, glory, duty and honor and all these things, then you know keeping within those things, he wants to do everything he can to please his woman and to please everybody and please himself. And so that's that. And so if a woman, and this can be from the smallest gesture to the grandest gesture or labor, which means very small things like telling a joke to a woman to make her laugh, opening the door for her, uh, just seating her at the table for dinner, and pulling out her chair. These are small gestures. Those are small things, right? But and it can go all the way up to big things, to working and laboring for years at grueling labor, and planning, and meticulous struggle and everything to be able to have a home, to build a home, or to pay for a home, or to build his business so that he can have the security to then provide for her and a family, and other things. Okay, so these are, so a man's willing to go through small and the great thing for her, um, and basically on that entire scale, it's how she accepts or submits to that love, right? That will conduct feasibility, viability of relationship, how deep the relationship goes, how far the relationship goes. Because even if it's not a romantic relationship that becomes, monogamous and committed between the two of you, these dynamics are still present to varying degrees in our acquaintances and whatnot. You have a female friend, a coworker, someone at school. You act basically the same. It's playful conversation. You don't talk to her like the men. Maybe these days these dynamics are getting worse, but normally you wouldn't, right? She's not a man, and there's similar dynamics. But for whatever reason, maybe you're not, the one that becomes the apple of your eye, that you just fall in love with and you desire her. That's the one you pursue, and the most. And when the woman feels that and reciprocates that and accepts it, basically, right? When she submits and accepts your love, your gaze, your intention, your love, your action, from the smallest to the greatest, that is relationship. That's it. That's what it is. So people are caught up in all these expectations and entitlements, and what should be or shouldn't be, and blah 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 blah, and those are all details. um, and it just gets in the way of really understanding and being wise about these things. And yeah, it just muddles it all up. So a man does something small for you, even something small, and that's why we see the feminists and these people saying, "I don't need nothing," and they could even get offended and aggressive at you just for holding a door open for her, even something small, right? Or saying like, "Good day, ma'am. How are you, miss? Mrs. Whatever," and being polite and courteous to a woman. It's even happening now. That's how degraded it is, that she can get offended at that, right? Because she's not accepting even the slightest bit of love from a man. And that's why she's so bitter and miserable and angry, right? And and the men are so dejected and emotionally, repressed and starved and all this stuff, that the women are rejecting even the slightest thing from them. So then to pursue the relationship deeper, I already can see that I'm going to run out of time on this. I'll have to do like a two-part, but I have to keep an eye on it because my video will cut off at 30 minutes. My phone that's like the limit. And so whatever, that's fine. Things of value are worth taking some time for. Um, and this subject it's a great one. So loving, and then, so when a man is attracted to a woman and desires her and wants to pursue her, it's just up to her how much she sees him, feels that reciprocal interest in him or whatever. But basically, like, what will make that to me is whether or not she sees and believes his authenticity of his love for her, and his ability to follow through on it, which is the provider role, right? Because there are, I know in the man sphere these days, they're always talking about hypergamy and gold digging women and all these things, and these things are true, and they're awful, and there's bad qualities of men and women these days that have contributed to the bad state of things, right? But anyways, those are the bad aspects of it, and so the woman obviously does need resources more than a man. Of course, she is dependent, and um, men are dependent in our own way, but not in the same ways, in different ways, and um, or maybe we're not even dependent at all, perhaps, but in a way. But I don't want to get too much into that at the moment. So the man loves the woman, she accepts his love, right? And that's how it functions. And so if she sees and believes that he loves her, and that it's genuine, and that he is capable, will be capable to provide for her, and to be a loving, loyal husband, and to provide a loving, loyal fatherhood, and a home for the family. So it's pretty simple, right? He's attracted to her, he adores and loves her, he pursues her, and she either sees that and accepts it. And these things might not happen instantly. Sometimes it does happen essentially instantly, particularly for the men, but I think even for the women too. But there's different quantifiers. Um, and that is ultimately what the process of courtship really would be, right? It's become dating now, which really dating it's a total mess by itself. I want to make some videos talking about what I don't think that there really is no such thing as a boyfriend or a girlfriend, right? Like it doesn't really exist. It's a made up term, like so many made up terms these days that don't really mean anything. It's a word that's trying to get us to do gymnastics in our head and lie to ourselves about the real nature of what we're pursuing and doing in our relationships and our behaviors, um, and about our own true nature of what we want, of love, pure love, and a lasting partnership. And that's what we want. I mean, and people these days are so callous and bitter that everyone makes fun of these things and just acts like it's fairy tale childhood stuff, or just Christian religious, or whatever, old fashioned fables and all this. But that's not true. That's not true. It is real stuff, and it's what we all really want. Um, and like I said, it's the higher powers that be that have brought us to this place. And we're I guess we're guilty to have succumbed to those things to some degree. Like, I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna have to cut this off and make like a part two. I'll just continue and try to just flesh this out, maybe a little more, to just paint the picture, if I can, a bit better. And I hope that you will follow this and understand, and let it sink into your heart, and then filter into your mind and pursue these thoughts and ideas. Because if you can understand the truth of it, um, then I think you'll benefit. Then you can, and you can put it into action, and you can think about this on a daily basis and put it into action. And I think that you'll really benefit, and then all mankind can really benefit from these types of understandings, the truth, of course. So, all right, I'll see you for part two.